Welcome back into the Sports Renegades here at SportsTownChicago.com. Joining us on the phone right now is Gabe Salgado. Gabe, how are we doing tonight?
Hey guys, doing good. How about yourselves?
Doing well, thank you. So Gabe, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, and what is your take so far on how the playoffs have gone so far?
Are you entertained?
Well, so far it's a good thing that they're off tonight because then we could actually have time to talk about this as opposed to doing it while there's a game in progress. So it's good on that note. But obviously the conference finals this year are the same as last year, but I think it's a completely different set of circumstances. San Antonio's been very dominant so far, and the Pacers are putting up a better fight against Miami than people would have thought.
Do you like the Pacers? I mean, being from Chicago myself, I'm not a big Pacers fan, but I'm just not a fan of the players that they have on that team. They don't seem like they just want to play. They just kind of seem like they show off, and they're just a little bit clownish to me.
Well, the thing with the Indiana Pacers is that they don't do anything too flashy. They like to play hard-nosed defense. They're basically just a fundamental team on offense. Sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't, as you saw where they struggled in the first round against Atlanta. So, they're not a very flashy team, and of course, obviously, being a Bulls fan, you have a little bit of resentment towards them for certain things. But overall, the Pacers have always been a hard-working team. There have been times where, like Roy Hibbert doesn't show up and they don't get the shooting when they need it. But, the Indiana Pacers, that's their identity as a team.
Sticking with Indiana, how worried are you about Paul George and that concussion he has?
In this day and age where everybody's very cautious about head injuries and, a lot of scrutiny is going into it, obviously he's the Pacers' best offensive weapon. I'm sure they'll try to keep him out there if they can, but, not having him obviously is going to impact them. And with the next two games being played in Miami, not having him on the court is going to impact their offense significantly.
Switching to the other side of the playoffs, the San Antonio Spurs are just completely taking apart the OKC Thunder. Why do you think the Thunder aren't able to get to the finals and get where they want to be?
Well, I can tell you from what I've been seeing in this series so far is not having Serge Ibaka out there hurts them tremendously. San Antonio's front line has just been exploiting, his absence. And, this year it's just kind of been, obviously San Antonio on paper at least is a better team than Oklahoma City. They're a very good defensive team. As you know, they held both Westbrook and Durant to 30 combined points the other night when both those guys average anywhere between 20 to 40 a game. So, they're a hard-nosed defensive team, and, with Serge Ibaka being absent, that's just a bigger plus for San Antonio, and they've exploited that completely.
Sticking with that series, we've often seen in the past coaches being fired because of their team's, mishaps and not having success in the playoffs. Do you see that same thing happening to Scott Brooks if his team is eliminated or possibly even swept?
I hope not. He's obviously, taking this team to new heights. When they first came to Oklahoma City from Seattle, they were in the gutter for a long time, and slowly they've been putting the pieces in place. They could probably use, even though Durant's their biggest scorer and Westbrook chips in too, they could probably use another scorer and perhaps maybe another defensive player to come off the bench. Next season is definitely something they should look into, but I hope not. He really has turned this team into something special.
What do you think about the Thunder's depth overall? Because you see Thabo Sefolosha has had 0 points combined in these games, and then Nick Collison, Ibaka's replacement, has scored 2 points in both of the games, and I don't think anyone on their bench has put up 10 points in a game yet.
Yeah, like I said, they could definitely use a couple other pieces that would help them out next year. Obviously, what they had this year is what they're stuck with, and not having their best defensive player in Ibaka is really hurting them. So, it's definitely something they should look into over the summer is adding, a couple other players that can contribute, coming off the bench, especially if there's an injury.
If you're the guys on the Spurs like Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan, if you happen to win the championship this year, do you think about retiring next year, or do you think they would come back and try one more time?
I'm surprised that Tim Duncan hasn't retired already. He's won his fair share of championships, as has Tony Parker. And, Duncan, getting up there in age, obviously he's still an effective player, but he's not putting up, 20 and 15 like he used to. Now it's more like 15 and 12 a game. And, there's also various points during the season where, Duncan and Parker, they won't play an entire game. They'll sit on the bench just because, Greg Popovich wants to give them rest. I don't know if that's, maybe their body just can't take the grind anymore or whatever the case may be. But, how many times have we heard, them ask Tim Duncan if he's going to retire? Obviously, whether or not they win a championship, they'll retire, or he'll retire when he feels that he can't contribute anymore, is what I'm guessing, because he's still effective. He's not as effective as he used to be, but, he still pitches in every night, and he's still a big part of that team. So, I think what it will boil down to is either A, when his body just can't do it anymore, or B, the team decides that they want to move on and get younger at the position.
Are you going to be surprised if it's the rematch of last year's finals with the Spurs making it as well as the Miami Heat?
I wouldn't. Although I'd like to see Miami lose because I'm just, burnt out with, seeing the Miami Heat win every year. But I would not be surprised at all, especially with the way that San Antonio has been playing against Oklahoma City. And as we all know, you can't count out the Miami Heat. The difference between the Miami Heat this year as opposed to the last couple of years, they have depth, and they have guys that can contribute off the bench when LeBron and Dwayne Wade need a rest, especially since Wade has had some injuries this year. So, it wouldn't surprise me. Miami's gotten better, from a depth standpoint, and San Antonio's, obviously the best team in the Western Conference for a reason. So it wouldn't surprise me. I just hope that the outcome will be different this time if that's the case.
With that being said, what do you think happens to Miami's big three after this season?
I think if they win a championship, I would not be surprised if one or maybe two of the big three decides to go somewhere else, because eventually the Miami Heat's going to be in a salary cap crunch with all three of these guys. So it wouldn't surprise me. Now, if they don't win the championship, I could definitely see them pushing to stay together. Just that somebody's going to have to take a pay cut, but that all depends on how they end up finishing out the season. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if one or maybe two of those guys decide to go elsewhere and help another team.
Now, let's head over to the Bulls for real quick. What do you think about these Kevin Love and Carmelo Anthony rumors that are kind of flying around now?
I think the best thing for the Bulls would be to have, Carmelo Anthony. Obviously, Kevin Love's a solid player. He can score, but he doesn't score as much as Carmelo can, and he's not a very good post player. And, him, just like Carlos Boozer, their defense is a concern. So I think that, the Bulls will be better off with Carmelo Anthony to give give Derrick Rose that number 2 scorer to take the pressure off of him. Getting Carmelo Anthony will definitely, go a long way towards deciding what the Bulls do with the power forward position next year, whether or not they amnesty Carlos Boozer, they make Taj Gibson a new starter. We finally see Nikola Mirotic finally. So, obviously, whether or not they're able to get Carmelo Anthony will, make it easier for the Bulls to make a lot of other decisions. But overall, I'd prefer to have Anthony here.
What would it take for Carmelo Anthony to come to the Bulls? They'd probably have to give up some draft picks too, wouldn't they?
He can opt out of his contract. Right. He hasn't done it yet. So if he opts out of his contract, he'll be a free agent. From there, it's just a matter of, convincing him that the Bulls is the place for him. Will he be willing to take a pay cut that he would have to take? He can make, 20 to 30 million if he were to stay in New York, as opposed to the, 12, 14 million that he can make per year with the Bulls. So, they'd have to convince him that taking the pay cut is worth it. Derrick Rose would have to stay healthy, and they'd like I said, they'd have to make a decision on the power forward position before they could even, try to lure Carmelo Anthony here. So those are the three keys that will ultimately decide whether or not he'll come to the Bulls.
Talking with freelance writer Gabe Salgado here on SportsTownChicago.com. You can give him a follow at Gabe Salgado82. And before we get to the Cubs renovations, what do you see the Bulls doing in the draft, and what do you see the Cavaliers doing with that number 1 pick?
As far as Cleveland with that number 1 pick, that's pretty hard to say. Aside from Kyrie Irving, and that's even if he stays, because his contract's coming up, I believe, they need help pretty much everywhere they can get it. They've been, in a free fall since LeBron James went to Miami. So there's a lot of things that, need to be fixed there, especially since, they fired their head coach, and, the Cleveland Cavaliers have just been in a bad situation. As far as the Bulls draft picks, obviously, if they could draft, perhaps maybe, another guard to probably help out there. They're not going to be able to keep every guard on their roster, depending on the type of money they command. There's also a chance that maybe they can trade those picks and try to get something else of value for it. So, for the Bulls, they have 2 first-round picks and, Obviously if they can use one of them to get, a veteran player or maybe to get a higher draft pick to get one of the top picks in the draft, there's a lot of things that they can do and a lot of flexibility they have with the draft this year.
All right, well, to switch over now into the MLB and the Chicago Cubs with Tom Ricketts coming out yesterday about the renovations. Do you think it's a smart move?
I see both sides of this argument. The rooftop owners, they're afraid of getting their views blocked and, that contract that they signed with the team being breached. At the same time, the Cubs obviously need whatever revenue they're going to get from this, from the advertising and everything else to renovate the ballpark and, to finally put resources back into the team to compete again. And as somebody who covered the Cubs for 2 years, I could tell you, that press box at Wrigley Field can definitely use an upgrade. The media room where they have the post-game press conferences, that's not even a media room. It looks more like a boiler room if you've ever been in there. So they need that. And also, for, big events whenever they've had major press conferences, like I was there the day that they signed Edwin Jackson. The press conference was in the team's locker room because they had nowhere big enough to accommodate the press. And last year when Ricketts first announced the renovation plans for Wrigley, he held that press conference on the main concourse, again, because they don't have a big enough room to accommodate all the media for events like that. So, and obviously the clubhouse is a little cramped, and there's just some changes that need to be made for the betterment of the ballpark. I know a lot of people, especially the rooftop owners, are just looking at this as a big cash grab, but unfortunately, it's a cash grab that's needed if the team is going to compete, down the line. Obviously, we all heard, when Matt Garza went to Milwaukee, how happy he was, especially now that Milwaukee is pretty much running away with the division already. I'm sure Jeff Samardzio's, looking to get out because he, as good as a pitcher he's been, he's had no offensive support. So, when you take a look at situations like that, really nobody wants to play here anymore. So I definitely see both sides of this argument, but ultimately the Cubs need to do what's best for their team. And, like I said, the biggest problem that's overall in this situation is that Wrigley Field is in a residential area. It's not like U.S. Cellular Field where they have land all of themselves. This is a residential area, and, that's what complicated things from the beginning. So, but overall, the Cubs need to do what's best for the organization and for the team.
Now, do you think, and this is your opinion, do you think the Cubs, when they had that opportunity to move out to Rosemont, do you think they should have done that, or do you think sticking with Wrigley is going to be better in the long run?
Obviously, the historical significance of Wrigley is making it worth staying, but at the same time, if this is going to end up being a drawn-out legal battle that prevents the Cubs from getting what they need done to the ballpark, I think that, Tom Ricketts should definitely keep that option of moving to Rosemont open. The village of Rosemont has definitely left that open. They have a good amount of land they want to give to the Cubs where they pretty much can build the stadium and do whatever they want with it, but the only thing is obviously the longer drive for Cubs fans, and especially, they may not be happy with having to take a tollway to get to the new ballpark, and, and obviously it doesn't have the same neighborhood feel that, the Wrigleyville has to it with the bars and everything, and plus, if the Cubs were to leave Wrigleyville, that neighborhood will suffer from an economic standpoint, so, really it's not exactly a win-win situation for anybody, but, at the end of the day, the Cubs ultimately need to do what's best for them.
Do you think that the rooftop owners are going to drag it out for a long time, and do you see that being a continuing thing in the next 2 to 3 years?
Unless, the legal system steps in and say, okay, this is what the Cubs are going to do, and this is what the rooftop owners need to do to accommodate it, I think that the rooftop owners will fight it as long as they need to and drag it out as long as they need to try to get what they want. Now, keep in mind, when this whole rooftop thing started, it started with just people who were living in those buildings in the, late 80s and early 90s who were just like, hey, we have a pretty good view of the ballpark on the roof here, let's go up there. And, rent in that neighborhood was a lot cheaper at the time. And, over time, people just decided, hey, we can make money off of this. And, it took a few years for the Cubs to realize that the owners of these buildings were making a profit off of them. So the Cubs had every right to say, hey, you can't just make money off of our product for free. And, so they signed the contract, which I think was a good thing. But, now the rooftop owners are basically just trying to, stranglehold the Cubs. And, they're making it all about them. And, it's just an unfortunate situation. And like I said, I understand where both sides are coming from on it. But at the same time, the Cubs have to do what's best for their team. And, for a fan base that's waited over 100 years for a world championship, I just think that, the patience just isn't there anymore. Attendance is down, TV ratings are down, And, the other thing, too, is the Cubs want leverage on, in this situation, is to negotiate a new TV deal. Their current TV deal with Channel 9, anyway, expires at the end of the season. So there's a lot more riding on this for the Cubs than it is for the rooftop owners.
All right, well, staying on the topic of the Cubs, the draft's coming up in a couple weeks, so who do you think they're going to take with that 4th overall pick? What would be like your top 4 picks in a mock draft?
I haven't had a chance to pay too much attention to college baseball this year, but I know that the Cubs have talked about restocking, their pitching talent, because right now, they don't have a lot of arms, quality arms in the farm system. So I would not be surprised if they take a pitcher, because they're trying to make sure they have enough pitching for their farm system moving forward. Obviously, when you look at guys like Albert Elmore and Javier Baez and Chris Bryant, they definitely bought enough position players to stock the farm system, but now they got to focus on the pitching staff again. So I definitely see them taking a pitcher out of this.
All right, Gabe. Well, we really appreciate you coming back on our show, and hopefully we can talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Gabe.
Yes. Hello. Yes. This is Magellan from the Abe Cannon Show, and you're listening to the Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com. It's pretty cool.
I'ma start a ride. I'ma start a ride.
The Friday Sports Riot.
I'ma start a ride. I'ma start a ride.
The Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.
What's up? This is the Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Hoppy.
And I'm Ryan Stuppridge.
Call the show to get on the air. 630-403-5200. That is 630-403-5200. And on the phone line, you can hear him on SportsTownChicago.com. And he is a freelancer. Gabe Salgado is on the line. What's up, Gabe?
Hey, guys, we got a big game tonight.
Yes, we do. But first, what went right as the Hawks beat the Kings 5-4 in double overtime?
Home ice advantage, that helped for sure. The Hawks, they were very aggressive on both ends. They scored on the power play. They gave Corey Crawford a little more defensive support than they did all series, really. And, nice to see it all come together, and hopefully they can put that same effort again tonight.
And how ironic was it that Michael Handzus was the guy that scored the overtime goal in the clutch situation?
The good thing about this Blackhawks team is that it can happen with anybody. I know a lot of people look to, Kane and Tays and Hossa and Sharp and guys like that, but the way that Quinville has his team playing, it can happen from anybody, is what's so great about this team.
And now when that goal happened, I found myself so pumped up, saying out loud, Zeus, at the TV screen. Was there any chance you were doing that, or am I crazy, Gabe?
I kept my composure a little bit as a journalist. I tried to be objective, but I'm not going to lie. It was nice to see. It was good to see the crowd enjoyed it, and I imagine you probably weren't the only one that was reacting that way.
Do you think that Christopher Stieg will see playing time tonight, or do you think he's going to be benched for the whole game?
It would not surprise me if he was a healthy scratch tonight. Really, he just was not himself. Hasn't really done much this postseason, but considering everything that he accomplished with the 2010 championship team, it's really a far cry from what he did then. And, he just made a lot of key mistakes, and a couple of those mistakes led to goals, so it would not surprise me if he was a healthy scratch tonight.
What is going on with Chris? This is a guy who has helped us win 2 previous cups, and now he looks like a shell of himself. What do you think is going on with Chris?
That's a really good question, and that's something that just doesn't seem to be a clear-cut answer to. I know there has been games where he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time. That could be a factor. But then when he does get his playing time, he just isn't out there delivering like he used to. So,
yeah.
It could be any number of things. Just something that you just can't really point at one thing or the other. But it's unfortunate because Versteeg normally is a pretty productive player.
So with all that being said, what do the Hawks need to do to get a win tonight to bring it back for Game 7 at the United Center?
They got to do the same thing that they did Wednesday night. They got to be aggressive. They got to play hard defense. They got to, chase down those pucks. They got to score on those power plays. They got to, hold their own on the penalty kill. And, they got to, give Crawford better defensive support. They got some of that in the last game. So if they can put all those things together for one more night and find a way to keep the Kings' offense at bay, we're looking at a Game 7 Sunday night.
And now when they give up those 3 goals in a row, what is the first thing that comes in your mind, Gabe?
first thing that comes in my mind is just they're kind of out of position on defense. I know it's so easy to point the finger at Crawford, but when there's no defenders in front of him trying to deflect and block shots and, try to disrupt the offensive rhythm of the Kings, you can only do so much on your own. So it's not entirely Crawford's fault. And that's kind of what's been the backbreaker for this team in the series.
And now, Gabe, I want to get your take on this. Coach Q had a few bad calls in that Game 5. What were your take on those bad calls by Coach Quenneville?
He doesn't make bad calls very often. As a coach, they're going to happen. But, Quenneville's usually a pretty consistent guy, so that's slightly out of character for him. But, like I said, it happens with every coach. And, there's going to be days where they just don't go your way, and that was just one of those days.
And whoever comes out of the West, do you think that they could beat the New York Rangers, who just clinched their first Stanley Cup berth since 1994?
The New York Rangers, they've been a tough team all season. And you take a look at the teams that they've beaten to win the conference championship. Whether they play the Kings or whether they play the Blackhawks, it's going to be a very tough Stanley Cup series. And regardless of who the Rangers play, I would not be surprised if this year's Cup goes 7 games.
What is it about this Rangers team that makes them so dangerous on the ice?
They're just a team that likes to grind and they like to hustle, and they don't play finesse hockey. They don't play pretty hockey. They just go out there and give it everything they got, and they scratch and claw their way on that ice. It doesn't get any more simpler than that.
What happened to the Habs? Because everyone thought they were going to make it to the Cup Finals, but then here comes the Rangers. So, overall, what went wrong with Montreal?
They ran into a tough defense. You take a look at the scores of these games. The Rangers did a pretty good job of keeping Montreal off the board and didn't let them get too many goals. And, they ran into a tough defense, and they just couldn't find a way to get around it at the end of the day.
In your opinion, who do you think is going to win tonight? Do you think the Hawks extend it, or do you think the Kings win and go to the Stanley Cup Final?
If the Hawks can play the same way that they did Wednesday night, this is going to be a Game 7.
Yeah.
But if they falter like they did in Games 2 through 4, it'll end tonight.
And this is a bit off topic, but I want to get your take, Gabe. All of these King fans online run their mouth and talk smack about the Blackhawks. How annoying is that? Since they're a bunch of bandwagoners that went from being a fan of the Lakers to the Clippers to the Dodgers and now the Kings. How annoying is that fan base, or should I say bandwagoners?
It's extremely annoying because during the regular season, they don't come to the games. They start showing up, when they make the playoffs or when they do something significant. Other than that, they'll show up. And if you take a look at the TV ratings, the Blackhawks, the ratings here in Chicago are through the roof. All in Los Angeles, they're barely scratching the surface. And the thing that you got to realize too, yes, the Kings have been in the league since 1967, but ultimately, Southern California isn't exactly a prime destination for hockey.
No, it's not. And here's my other thing I want to ask you. Let's say it does go to a Game 7. What would the Hawks need to do then to make it to the second cup or the third cup in 4 years?
They to stick to what's made them so great, these last few years, being good in every facet of the game, getting consistency from all their lines, getting solid goaltending from Crawford, and, exactly what got them through those last 2 cups. The Blackhawks, they're not exactly a team that does one thing special over the other. They're just a hard-nosed team. They're fundamentally sound, and they've always had good coaching, and they've always, found, aside from the top guys that have made this team go, they've also had role players to complement that.
And, Gabe, before we let you go, where can people find your work online and here on SportsTownChicago.com?
Follow me on Twitter at GabeSalgado82, the best place to find me. And also, when you guys bring Mark Grody on, tell him I said hello. You'll probably get a lot of good stuff from him as well.
Okay.
Sounds good, Gabe. Here's to hoping that the Blackhawks beat that annoying fake fan base known as the Kings tonight.
I really hope they do. It all depends on how they perform once they get out there on the ice, and if they can bring that aggression that they did Wednesday night. It's all going to come down to that.
Well, Gabe, have a good weekend, my man, and thanks for coming on to Friday Sports Riot here only on SportsTownChicago.com. Thanks, Gabe.
All right, thanks, guys, for having me. Have a good weekend.
And that was Gabe Salgado. You can catch him on Twitter. He is a great follow. He is at Gabe Salgado 82.
Yes.
You can hear him on Fahey and Shavari between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Thursdays, and on the Sport Renegade Show with my guy Ryan Risky between 8 to 10 p.m. on SportsTownChicago.com. What was your take, Ryan, on some of the things that Gabe Salgado said?
I agree with him where I think the Hawks need to play the same way they played in Game 5. It'll be a little tougher because they're on the road now.
Oh, yeah.
So, obviously, everything's not going to go perfectly where, like, if you're home, things go a little more smoothly. But I think the Hawks can definitely win this game. They just have to play aggressive. They just have to keep fighting because that's what they've done. Ever since they gotten this team together, they've been able to fight and they've been able to win 3 straight in the playoffs. They did it last year against Detroit in the second round. So, I think it's not going to be as, impossible as some people think.
Coming up, the Friday Sports Riot.
Who is coming up at 4:40?
At 4:40, we have Jake Brown, who is from ESPN The Weekend and ESPN Radio. And he is coming on to talk about the NBA playoffs as the Spurs and the Thunder are going down to the wire. And the Heat have a chance to close out and go to their fourth straight final.
All right, we will be right back on the Friday Sports Riot. Up next is Jake Brown from ESPN The Weekend up in New York on ESPN Radio. Do you want to get on the show and comment on everything that Gabe Salgado said and on our interview with Andrew Bellison, who is the PA announcer for the Cubs? Call us right now. 630-403-5200. That is 630-403-5200. We will be right back on the Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com. Hang on.
The Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.